The Public Safety Committee, January 11th edition to order. Roll call, please.
Alderperson Alms.
Here.
Alderperson Hall.
Here.
Alderperson Morset is excused.
All right, number 2, minutes from the November 16th meeting.
Move to approve.
And I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 3, parking. We'll start with 3.I guess that would be the discussion and possible action to restrict parking on Grandview Drive between Vine and Ash Street.
Yeah, that's 3A.
3A.
Yeah,
sorry.
the reason that I brought this to the committee is that one of my neighbors requested that. What's going on Grandview is that we've got the buses going through there now because of the school changing their routes. And if you've got items parked on, or cars parked on both sides, it's really narrow, so then you've got to wait for, it just impedes the traffic. There's not that much parking that they can't all line up on one side of the street and make things a little bit easier to get through. And then when public safety vehicles have to get through, so for ambulances and fire engines, we need the space there too.
Gotcha. Have you talked with the school at all, with the buses? I mean, are they seeing it as a problem too? Just out of curiosity.
I didn't talk to anybody at the school yet, no.
Gotcha.
But I've noticed it myself, and when I've gone through. There's somebody who's got a camper who, or a motor home that parks it there every once in a while. I haven't seen it lately, but that takes up a lot of space.
So you don't see that impeding what needs to be used by the neighbors there at all by shifting off one of them? You know what I mean?
I don't think there should be a problem if there's, and the neighbor who requested this said, I don't care what side of the street they park on, but then she doesn't live on Grandview, so
Gotcha.
So we could ask the neighbors.
Sure. Willems, what do you think? Jeff?
Is there a lot of parking on both sides of the road on Grandview?
It's not that often, but when there is,
You know, there's a lot of driveway space in the properties on those houses, so
Yes.
I haven't seen a lot. I know the motorhome you're talking about, but I mean, how do the food and service delivery trucks for the school get back there? Do they drive that route too, or they go up 12th Street to Oak, or do you know how they go?
I haven't noticed any of them.
Because they have to deliver food for.
Yeah.
I mean, how do those trucks get back there?
I don't know, and they could even come in through Vine and go around the school.
Yeah.
It's mainly the.
Just curious
Yeah.
questions, but
No, it's mainly the buses that are going through there.
so you're asking, or they're asking for restricted parking on one side, like no parking on this side of the street,
Right, just to make it.
east or west side, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
to them.
matter.
Is this a year-round request, or is it just for
No, it would be a
winter?
year-round
Would be for
Well, yes, because if you've got people parking on both sides of the street, it does impede the traffic. I suppose we could try just school,
That's
but,
just what I was
yeah, I mean,
thinking.
that's
if it
for
was
the buses.
Right.
But it's not just the buses, it's
It's
people
the-
that are coming in and out.
How wide is that street? Do we know? Have you measured it yet?
I have not. I have not. And that's a good. The only other question I was going to ask is this more of an issue because of the construction and the diversions that people have to take to get their kids to school? Do we think it's going to be a continued issue after the construction is done?
Yes, because these school buses are going to continue to go through there all the time too.
Okay.
And I don't know, how often this is an issue. I've just noticed it here and there when I go down there.
We haven't seen anything from an accident standpoint on that specific stretch or anything.
No, but while she brings it up, I don't think there's any sidewalks on that street, and I don't know how pedestrians are. I don't think there's any sidewalk.
There's sidewalk. I think there's sidewalk on the west side of the street.
All the way
Or
down?
at least, well, I don't know. I can look it up on Google Maps.
That would be the only other thing I could say is that maybe it would be a good idea, just because I know there's a lot of residential up there and a lot of people go out, especially in the spring and summertime, for walks, and there's not really if there's no sidewalk, there's not really a safe place to walk. And if cars are parked on both sides of the road, then I think it becomes a little bit of a safety issue.
Yeah, I think there's sidewalk all the way down on the west side. And it would only be for 2 blocks. It would be the block, so north of Vine up to Ash. And I don't have good internet right now, so I'm not pulling this up.
So, you got a letter from one of your neighbors. You don't see any issues with the other neighbors that are in that specific block? Like nobody? You don't
Nobody
have any
on that
guests?
specific block has contacted me, no. And I didn't get a letter. I saw her when we were out and about for doing some other things, and
Gotcha.
she knows who I am and asked me to bring it to the.
And so if we
council.
do shut down parking on half the street, that's just signage for the 2 blocks? I mean, is that
Yes.
something that we do, or does that have to go to Public Works?
I think that would have to go to Public Works.
Okay.
So would that be the next step, would be to send it to Public Works? Or would it be to
I
send it to
suppose
council?
if you guys approved
Usually
it-
we send it to council and then Public Works just handles it.
Yeah, I don't know the rules of the process here, where it has to go from here, but the financial impact wouldn't be very high.
No, it wouldn't be high.
Right.
Because it's just a few signs.
Yep.
But whenever we've restricted parking during the school year, I think it's just gone right to council. I don't know that it's gone to Public Works.
Okay.
But
So do you want
I'll
to
make the motion to change the parking on Grandview to one side of the street from Vine Street to Ash Street.
And I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any specifications on which side in your motion, or are you gonna leave it up to Public Works, or?
Mm.
Do you have a sense of that?
I don't know, I guess it would depend, to me, it would depend on what side of the street the sidewalk is on.
All right, let's see if I can find that information here.
And if there's sidewalk on both sides, then I wouldn't have an opinion.
Right. But the sidewalk or the side that the sidewalk is on is the sidewalk that you would potentially have the parking, right?
Restriction.
Have the restriction?
okay.
Okay.
So the sidewalk is on the west side of the street, so then no parking on the west side of the street? So parking would be restricted to the east
That's
side
up
of
to
the
you
street?
guys. I would say if there's a sidewalk there, then people can park there, right? But if there's
Okay.
no sidewalk on the other side, where do people
Right.
walk?
Yeah, okay,
Right.
So if you're
All
gonna
right.
do it, maybe kill 2 birds with 1 stone kind of thing.
okay.
So do you want to amend your
So,
motion?
yes, I'll amend the motion to no parking on the east side.
And I'll second.
And
Discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. All right. Line item 3B, discussion and possible action on downtown parking RFP draft. And we have
Thank you.
Blake.
You guys can share mine and bring it up for everybody.
If you can state your name and address.
Yes. I'm Blake Fry, president of the Hudson Area Chamber of Commerce, located at 502 2nd Street here in Hudson. I am a member of our parking committee that's been looking at, obviously, for the last, year now, looking at resolving some of the parking issues we have downtown. Just a little bit of history. We did, as the chamber, split the cost with the city of a parking study and a parking plan that was created by Rich and Associates. That plan's been presented and discussed in this room a number of times. The next step we saw in that process, there's been a few recommendations in that plan that have been implemented, like striping parking along First Street and some other areas of that downtown central business district. But our next step is really looking to issue an RFP for parking services equipment that will address many of the recommendations in the study, including replacing the old beat-up broken meters we have around downtown right now, and bringing in new modern equipment and parking services. We contracted with Rich and Associates again on the development of the RFP, and that's the document that you have before you. They submitted one draft. We made some recommendations and had them update that draft, and we're quite pleased with the final outcome. I'll be happy to entertain any questions anybody has specifically about the RFP. I will just mention the timeline that we would like to move forward with the implementation of this. We're starting tonight, bringing this in front of this committee for approval, and then for then next step, taking it to the Finance Committee and the Common Council on the 22nd of January, issuing the RFP on February the 1st with a March 1st deadline. Somewhere in between those two dates, having a meeting available where possible vendors can meet with the parking committee, get questions answered specifically about the RFP. March 1st be the deadline for the submissions, with March 21st being our target date to select who we're going to go with on this project and bring that recommendation forward. A June 1st installation beginning of this, with a July 9th soft launch of the new system. And by soft launch, I mean probably not ticketing people, letting them know. There'll be an education process that goes along with the launch of the new parking system. So that's the timeline that's in the RFP. And the timeline we would like to move forward with at this time. So I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has about the document.
Joyce, do you?
Well, first of all, very detailed. They did a really good job with this.
Yes.
I was amazed at just how much was involved in that.
No kidding.
How many vendors can meet the criteria that?
And this is where it's going to be interesting, is that there, and I've mentioned before, there's no single company that does everything. There's no company that makes the pay stations, makes the license plate readers, makes the ticketing software. They're all different companies. So it's going to be a matter of each bid's going to involve probably 3 to 4 different companies coming together and collaborating and submitting a bid together. So that's going to be the X factor here, is how many are we going to get when it's that complicated. And that's why we wanted them to do the RFP. We knew this was going to be quite complicated. So the RFP does give us the right to say, well, you know what, we're going to take this part of your bid, but not the rest of it. I don't see us doing that again, because we want to make sure all these systems work together. But we do, within this RFP, give ourselves the opportunity to select pieces of a bid and not the others. So honestly, I don't know how many we could get. We have met with, we've had requests for information, conference calls with several companies, but again, they're all just one piece of the puzzle. Okay. Yeah.
And are there a lot of different phone apps for doing, for paying for parking, or I know we've been using the one that's specified in there. Is there a chance that we'd be migrating to a different one?
That we had not done, because we've been told that there's great confidence that they'll be able to sync with our current app. There are several other expenses associated with this that we didn't maybe want to add another one on. And for instance, the software we're using right now in the back room that handles the ticketing processes will need to be replaced. I spoke with the city, and it was the bare bones model that was purchased. It's not expandable. Okay. So we're pretty much from A to Z going to have to replace everything as it relates to the parking systems.
Is the style chosen? I mean, is it a meter per space? Is that what we're going
for?
No,
what we're looking at are pay stations similar to what you see over in downtown Minneapolis and St. Paul right now. The difference for ours will be their pay by plate. And so people will enter their license plate number, and then there will be a vehicle with a license plate reader attached to it, and it can just drive down the street and read everybody's license plates, feed that information in the software system, and spit out who hasn't paid, who's past due. It also spits out information like, is there an Amber Alert attached to this vehicle, or is this vehicle stolen? I know the police department's actually looking at grant opportunities right now to acquire a license plate reader. So that's another element of this, is that's maybe something we don't have to purchase through this bid. We may be able to acquire that through a grant opportunity.
Gotcha.
And
my next question too was to Jeff. I mean, the integration of this from a ticketing standpoint into our software, is our IT department involved with these discussions, or is that really more after the RFP goes out?
Well, I've had some conversations with the IT department. That's where the recommendation to get some of these new backroom systems coming in. A lot of this is actually going to be out on a cloud. We're not going to have to house all of this information. A lot of it is going to, and it will come in the bid. We'll see what the cost is associated with the cloud. But I don't think our expectation is that we're going to be storing all this information, all of it ourselves. There is some elements of it we'll have to, required by law, to maintain some of this ourselves. But a lot of it will be on the cloud.
Something to think about. There's a bunch of data that we currently have in our current parking system.
Yes.
So whatever system we choose to go with, we want to make sure that there's probably a way to take that data from our old system and put it with our new system.
Right. That's a great point. And the system we're using now, I called it bare bones, but it is made by one of the most respected and most used companies in the business. So I'm confident that integration will be able to happen, but we'll definitely make a point of keeping IT in the loop and making sure we're coordinating well with them.
So this system will work like a standard meter in that people will pay for a certain amount of time ahead of time. It's not going to be where they would have to check out at a certain time and get a bill.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll pay for a certain amount of time. They'll be able to, from no matter where, so the ticket, so they'll pay for it, they'll get a little receipt, and on that receipt will be a PIN number. And what they'll be able to do is, if I'm somewhere else downtown and I want to add more time to my car, I don't have to go back to the same pay station I was at. I can go to any pay station downtown, enter my PIN number, and add more time if I would like. Or I can use the Passport parking app and add more time that way as well.
Wow, this seems like very good technology. I mean,
Yes.
it's nothing like what's in Minneapolis even.
And it's not space specific, so.
Correct. So somebody could move if
So
they
it's
want to
not
move
like
somewhere else in
Duluth or
downtown.
Minneapolis, where you have the little pole by the, that you have to enter that.
Exactly. There will be none of those polls. It's all license plate. This system is being implemented in La Crosse right now. They're the ones in the area who are really the first adapter, and this has become, it doesn't feel like that long ago that Minneapolis and St. Paul put their systems in, but it's amazing how it's changed since they did. Right. So this is the kind of what everybody's going with, is the pay by plate, just because it's so easy to enforce. I mean, you just get a vehicle and whip around downtown for an hour, and you're able to do it, and all the other data you're able to collect is pretty valuable as well.
So what if somebody plans to spend 4 hours downtown, they find a 2-hour parking spot, but they pay for 4 hours right away, and then they move to another 2-hour parking spot? Will there be a problem with figuring out that they've moved their car and that they haven't parked for 4 hours in the same place?
No, because
So-
it's all picked up by the same, it's just the plate. They don't know where.
So there won't be anything in the system that will show exactly where they parked for how long?
It will, but yeah, and that's one of the things that will go into this and one of the things, and I'll talk about some of the other decisions that need to be made and how we want to make some of these decisions. But the recommendation in the plan is that there'll be certain time zones. So if you're parking along 2nd Street, it may be a 2-hour maximum. If you're down on 1st Street, down by 1st Street Station, it may be an 8-hour time limit. So creating different time zones for different part of the city. So it will recognize, yes, you've been in this area too long. It will know that you've been in an area too long, but it will also know if you've moved somewhere else to another 2-hour zone, that's okay. The goal here is to keep traffic circulating, keep parking circulating. That's one of the things we've been saying all along. The study came back and said, you are busiest at night and on weekends. And when is it we don't enforce parking? At night and on weekends. And enforcement just isn't about revenue, which is a nice benefit, but it's also about keeping the car circulating. So I'm learning all of this as we go along. Fortunately, we have on our committee a resident of Hudson who happens to be an expert in the parking services industry.
Yeah,
so,
I met him.
Yeah, so that's
a
been a
neighbor.
nice benefit as well. Nick's been a great asset for us.
I just have one real quick question. Now, if you do this to the Williams lot, at the fire department, we don't have enough if everyone's there, or if we have meetings and that, so we do spill back into the lot. Is there a way, that, we're not getting ticketed when that happens, I guess, is one of my concerns, because a lot of times or they'll be unloading trucks and things that we just can't park in our lot, and so, I'm sure there is a way to address it, but it's just something maybe on the front end to think about.
One of the things that you can do, and one of the recommendations, not only for, well, I guess you guys are employees, but all employees, is I would say people in your position, the city would just issue a permit and have the license plate automatically into the system to not, but our goal is also for people who work downtown that they would be able to get a permit, and then they would be able to park in the 8-hour parking zone without ever having to fill a meter, that permit would cover their parking as an encouragement to stop people from parking right in front of the business that they're working in.
Okay, thank you.
Well, how would you handle that as far as, so let's say you issued a permit to me so that when I'm attending official meetings, I don't have to worry about paying for parking.
Yeah.
But then I come downtown to go to a restaurant, how would you differentiate? Because then I would be obligated to pay for the parking.
Parking for life.
Nice benefit, but.
I think, I don't know we'd be able to do that necessarily. I think we'd be able to designate by zone, so your permit would be fine if you wanted to park in certain places, but if you were going to be a hog of spot right in front of, et cetera, then the system would go, no, the permit, you can't use permits in this stretch, and it would recognize that you're abusing your power.
I don't want to abuse my power.
One other question I had was, tell me a little bit more about the reader. I heard that you're looking at writing a grant for the readers, for the license plate readers.
Right, and that's go ahead.
Is that outfitted on current police vehicles, or is that an actual vehicle?
Okay, so that's one of the questions, and it's on my list. So for the police are looking for one specifically that they can use in law enforcement. We might, a second one we would need a second one for the parking aspect of it. Yeah. We would equip a current squad car with the one that the police are going to get for law enforcement purposes. For us, one of the questions on the list is, what vehicle is enforcing parking? Because the idea when we were speaking with Randy, he said, well, the police department has some of these old squad cars that they don't use anymore. Well, Chief Jensen made it clear that if you're trying to drive one of those rear-wheel drive cars in winter, you're just going to spend your days spinning out in a parking lot. So one of the questions is, what vehicle is going to be equipped with this? The cities that we've seen with these LPRs actually have like little Bobcat or little mini cars or little, electric powered carts.
So a golf cart or something.
Exactly. And we see that as ideal as when whoever's enforcing parking needs to stop and pull over and issue a ticket, they're not blocking an entire lane of traffic because they have a much, much smaller vehicle.
Sure.
Yeah, there would be two different LPR systems. One would be on a squad car that would be out and about,
sure,
not used for parking, and the other one would have to be affixed to the parking enforcement vehicle.
Yeah.
So with all this technology, is the ticket come through like via email then to the Save on paper?
I don't know. It does issue paper tickets still.
Sure,
it's in there.
Sorry. Any other questions?
I can't think of anything. I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And before I leave the podium, if I may, I do want to bring up, I want a little guidance from this group, and maybe it comes from Common Council, but on the sheet that I handed out, the bottom half are some other things that while we're doing the RFP, while we're taking bids, that we need to make decisions on. And so this would include the hours and days of enforcement, what department or staff will have primary oversight of the new parking systems, additional locations where paid parking will be created. We actually have that in the RFP, so that we've kind of looked to resolve that. The maximum hours of parking by zone in the city. So where's it going to be 2? Where's it going to be 4? Where will it be 8? The cost of parking permits and in what locations those permits may be used. The recommendation in the parking plan is to increase the cost of the permits. And then finally, again, what vehicle we're going to use for enforcement. I bring in this to this group because a little guidance as to, would the city like to make those determinations on its own, or would they like recommendations from our parking committee as to what some of those answers are?
I think we'd like to see it as a recommendation.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
All input is welcome.
Okay, and so we have regular meetings of that group, so we'll bring some of those questions back, and we do have Michael Johnson and Mr. Morissette on that committee, so we do have city representation expertise. So we will look, while we're waiting for bids to come in, look to start coming up with some of those answers and bring those back to you in a
Great.
not too distant date then.
Great. Thanks so much, Blake.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very, very good. All right, so. Can I have this? Yes, you can have it. So I guess we're on the board, discussion and possible action on parameters for installing lighted crosswalk signals. Kind of brought this one up as an agenda item. And I guess it's more of just a start of a conversation. As we're looking at Hanley, I asked the question about lighted signals, and in a meeting that I had, I think it was Tom Sifko was talking about how River Falls has certain parameters for putting lighted signals in crosswalks. Because I'm thinking, you know, as requests come into public safety, should we have some sort of parameters that we can look at?
Well, the more we've got out there, the more requests we're going to get.
Right. And so I was just going to throw it out there. Would that be a good thing to do, I guess? And then I was thinking I could take that on and maybe meet with Jeff and
Okay.
and
Have you
others.
checked with River Falls to find out what
I
their
have not
parameters
yet.
are? Okay, so that would be,
Yeah. But, I mean, would it be worth
Yes,
taking the ball?
yes,
guess,
I
is
think
why
so.
was- Okay. So I didn't see it as like an action item, it's more of just, you know what I mean, just investigating it.
Start the planning
Start the
process.
planning process.
okay. So we don't need to appoint you to do that.
No, we don't need a subcommittee of the subcommittee. No, I don't think so. Thank you. All right. Number 5, discussion and possible action on RFP for design services for EMS facility at the Ward Avenue property. Brandon.
All right, so as you know, we have the building at Ward Avenue. It was originally identified as a prime site for EMS, and we're kind of still looking at that. Right now, we're still waiting to hear back on the fire site plan, which is due to be released on the 22nd of this month. So what we're looking to do is to kind of move forward with at least getting the architectural services for that Ward Avenue property for EMS done. We're just looking for a recommendation to move forward with it, contingent on the site plan showing that it's going to fit both.
Gotcha.
So the goal here is that after the site plan is presented on the 22nd, that we would also be able to the council would be able to have a discussion and possible action on this RFP that same night, so that we can get going with this. The space issues for St. Croix EMS, that's a huge problem that needs to be addressed.
I remember us talking about that like late summer, that by this year you would need that additional space for the staff.
Yeah, and so the RFP that I handed out is the one that we had initially were going to submit back in, I believe it was September. We brought it to council, and it was taken off the agenda at that time because we were looking at the fire department site at that point.
Okay, so you just have to update the dates and...
Update the dates, and then depending on what the site plan and everything is with the fire department, we might be able to eliminate the server room. We talked with IT, there might be some savings there and ability to share facilities on that.
So you've got a week and a half to
Yeah.
take care of this.
Yep. Other than that, there's no
Update
significant
it.
changes to it.
Oh, this,
And kind of a, I don't know, dumb question. So this is not putting out for the RFP, that's at no cost, right? It's
Right.
once that RFP then is accepted, then it's,
Yep.
so what you're looking for is just,
right, by putting out the RFP, we're not spending any money. We're looking to find out how much it's going to cost to get an engineering study done, and then that should give us an estimate on how much it should cost to have the...
To actually do the renovations. Yep.
gotcha. Didn't we have something done about the viability of that existing building at some point? for EMS or some, maybe I'm making that up.
No, I think we tried to bring this up before, this exact
This has been,
RFP.
this has been brought up a number of times in a number of different committees, and nothing's been done because we hadn't made the decision to go ahead with things, and so now it's time to make the
Now it's
decision.
time. Okay.
So I'll make the motion to move this to the council pending the results of the January 22nd presentation. So.
And I will second that.
Okay, so the idea is that, assuming that the study shows that we can keep that building, the west building on Ward Avenue, and that there's enough space for it, then we'll go ahead with this RFP.
So as long as this agenda item is after that presentation.
Yes. Yes.
Included in the notes, but,
I can tell.
okay, so any other discussion? Thoughts? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. EMS and fire department and police department update. So Brandon, you want to
All right, we
first?
just filled one of our full-time vacancies this week, and we're looking to fill the second of the two.
So you have four full-time?
We'll have 5. We have 4 currently.
So you have 4 currently with the new hire? Good.
And how is staffing otherwise?
We're still working on the new model. We still have some vacancies there. We did post for some EMT positions. We were hoping to get 6 positions filled. We only had 4 applicants at this point.
And how long ago did you advertise that?
We closed the posting on January 5th. And so we just got the applications Monday, and we're sorting through those now.
So you're going to reopen it?
Yeah, we'll reopen it, but I'd like to get the first few started. And,
Of the applicants?
Yep.
I mean, look good?
yeah, they look good.
Okay. And how, the hiring process from that, like if you decided on somebody, how long would that be until they're fully up to speed? Do you know what I mean?
It varies on the experience, and their experience is kind of vast. We could get them good to go in as little as a month.
Okay.
Cool.
Scott?
Been real busy lately. Last weekend I think we had 3 fires, one in our district, a couple in neighboring districts, so it's been busy. Reminder for people that are carbon monoxide detectors, if they're over about 5 years old, replace them and replace batteries every 6 months. We get a lot of calls this time of year for that. Also, make sure you check your smoke detector. But another big thing is portable heaters. It's one of the major causes of fire deaths and fires this time of year. All different kinds of portable electric, gas, people putting lamps on frozen pipes. Just be careful. It's especially with the really cold weather, you tend to have that. So just everybody out there try to remember that. We're also, the hiring is open. It's open till the end of the month. So you can go to the city's website or stop by City Hall. You do not need any experience. We will train people. So we're looking for more people that are interested. And council members are also encouraged. But no, so I guess that's about it. But
You have a training coming up on Saturday?
yes, weather permitting, Saturday we'll be out in the township across from Arrow Building. That way, there's a small house we're using for training.
Gotcha.
So.
Great. Thank you. Jeff?
Well, the application process for the police chief position, it closes on the 15th. So that process has started. Our application process for new patrol officers, that closes on the 19th. So that process has started. We've also started the internal process of the next sergeant selection process. So things are moving along there, though we don't anticipate even hiring anybody until May. And I don't know what the process for the chief replacement
I was
is
just
going
going to say, not for the chief though, right?
Right. No, I don't know what their plans are for that. They'll meet sometime after the 15th. I think it's on the 20th.
Of this month?
Yes.
So 15th and 19th
So
of January? Okay.
The Police and Fire Commission does the interviewing and makes the recommendation to council, and then council approves it? Is that the process?
No, pretty sure the Police and Fire Commission just makes their
They
decision.
may, oh, okay.
Don't have a decision. It's
Yeah.
sort
Oh, okay,
of
so,
what Marty had told me.
okay,
Yeah,
so,
it's all based on the Police and Fire Commission and what the process is going to look like, whether it's interviews or assessment centers or testing. They'll determine that.
I think the council has some leeway in, I don't mean to interrupt, compensation and that.
oh, okay,
I believe that's what's more confirmed by the council.
okay.
Benefits.
Other than that, the snowy Jack Frost guy is here. It looks like he's here to stick around for a little while. The city did issue a snow event effective 2 o'clock in the morning, Friday, so middle of the night tonight, kind of tomorrow. So we want to
And
make
that's
sure
no
we're not
parking on any,
No parking on any city street until those streets have been plowed curb to curb.
gotcha.
So, the city does offer permits for people that live in the residential areas with not a lot of off-street parking, that they can contact the city to get a permit, to be a parking permit for the snow events. Other than that, it's slippery outside, so drive carefully.
Thank you. And thanks for being here tonight.
No problem.
Any informational items? Okay. And other items for future agendas, Joyce?
I can't think of anything.
No?
I just kind of, you guys already mentioned January 22nd, the facilities, the site plan and stuff will be there, so that'll be presented for information at that council meeting. So maybe there'll be some talking about that afterwards, but for everyone to know that will be ready. I just talked to them again today, and they're working diligently on it, so it should be there. So
Look forward to seeing that. Thank you.
I do have one idea, maybe, possibly, for a future agenda.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is the right place to start it, but since nothing's happened with it since early summer last year, I figured maybe we can start something in public safety.
Sure.
I was talking to our SROs today at the high school and the middle school, and the schools have a big issue with kids with the vaping technology. Basically smoking the nicotine oils or waxes out of their little vape machines. It currently doesn't fit our ordinance because our ordinance clearly says tobacco product, and these little vials clearly indicate no tobacco. But nicotine is obviously the active ingredient in tobacco.
Sure.
So at some point, I think we need to see if we can change the language in our ordinance to have that enforceable, because our only other option at this point would be to charge the child with a misdemeanor
Right.
based on state law as underage possession of nicotine. But our ordinance doesn't indicate nicotine as
Sure.
a violation, so
Is there any way that you could connect with Catherine before the next public safety meeting, and then maybe we could,
I can.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I see that as like, let's get that now versus waiting.
Yeah, and I know that we had contacted her last year, and then it just kind of died, so
Okay,
I would like to
gotcha.
get something. to-
Could you CC me on it?
Yes.
there's
Maybe Joyce?
Yeah.
kind of piggyback on it. There's also several cases of those vape machines or whatever you call them exploding and burning in people's faces and hands and getting burned. So it's more than just that portion of it. They are also having some other issues with them, just as far as safety.
Gotcha.
What's the state law on them that, is it 16 for,
18.
18 for using, for,
18 for
Possessing-
possession or use of nicotine.
okay, so what we're really,
Tobacco, right, but the state law is much more specific than what our ordinance is. Our ordinance went with basically tobacco product, as defined by state statutes as tobacco product, and these are clearly
Okay.
not tobacco
so what you're
products.
saying here is we need to update our ordinance with the times, just like
And
the
it
drone,
could be as,
and
it
and keep
could,
it up with the state ordinance.
right, and it could be as simple as adding 3 words to the current ordinance,
Sure.
Yeah.
But I will get with Kathy,
Perfect.
and then
Good.
we'll go from there.
That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great to see that on that next agenda too then. Okay, other than that, do you have anything?
Move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
I
you.
will probably.